The defense corridor announced by our Raksha Mantri in the south will definitely provide a boost to the industry. And I would like to invite Mr. Ankit Tyagi, Senior Consultant, Ernst & Young, to speak about the knowledge paper on Tamil Nadu Defense Corridor. A brief about Mr. Ankit. He's an aerospace engineer currently working with the aerospace and defense practice of Ernst & Young. He has been part of this practice under which he advises companies within the sector on policy and procedural aspect along with devising entry strategy and growth strategy for companies related to the industry. Prior to this, he was working with Mahindra Aerospace and was part of their strategy management office to build Mahindra's global portfolio in utility aircraft and aerostructure market.
Thank you, AIDAT, for giving EY the opportunity to present and also provide the knowledge paper. So the topic that's been given to us is the knowledge paper in the defense corridor. And let me share what is not there in the knowledge paper, because I think what is there one can read. I want to share two things. The first is of our journey of trying to build the concept for this corridor. And after that, what is it that we have understood that the state must take up from here on so that we can actually fulfill the desire of the nation, which is to propel itself in the defense and aerospace sector. So when this opportunity was given to us by the Ministry of Defense, this was around September, October, we looked at the entire value chain of the defense, which starts with R&D, product development, parts manufacturing, sub-assemblies, major complex assemblies, platform, MRO. And we had to speak with all the stakeholders. We spoke from both the states, the respective entities that were involved in each of these segments. We tried to understand their pains. We tried to understand their own solutions around this, what policy recommendations they can give. And at the same time, we looked outside our country to look at all the major defense companies and the ones that are upcoming to understand within those value chains, those segments, what is it that they are doing differently? What is the best practice there? And mixing, amalgamating all of this, we tried to create three sorts of interventions. The first, what we called was a hard intervention. Hard intervention means like hardcore infrastructure. What is it that can be built inside? The second was the policy intervention as to, in policy-wise, how can we facilitate the entire build-up? And the third was the soft interventions, which is the nuts and bolts here and there that have to be put in by various authorities for the whole mechanism to work. And once we did all of this, we came across with certain approaches. These approaches that we have defined as technology hubs, when you call it R&D sector. We call them center of excellence when you talk about the parts manufacturing and component level, assembly level. We call them platform approach when you talk about a platform as such, and the MRO approach. And each of these approaches have their definite in policy interventions, infrastructure, and soft interventions, which are currently in discussion with the Ministry of Defense. In our stakeholder interaction, to many of you who are present, we have discussed with you as well. So we are not sharing that so much right now because the report is still not public, and but we have taken views from all of you. Now, the second part of what I want to share is that it is up to the, while we were doing all of this, we also realized that while the government has mentioned that the corridor must set up and they will definitely have a certain amount of money being put into the state, I think the state has a massive responsibility. The holders, the industry people have a massive responsibility to respond back to this call. And there are things that are up to you, and no sort of an intervention can actually propel those. So I just want to talk on those aspects. Let's address the elephant in the room, that is, that can we ignore the opportunity that we have today? So we always talk about the defense sector that exists in India. We talk about values of, say, $150 billion that are to come in the next 15, 20 years. But more and more, when you understand Make in India, it is also talking about export market. Right now, the MOD has worked tirelessly to ensure that the export mechanism is getting facilitated for all the industry players. And CIPRI came out with their report this week itself that the entire global defense industry is a $1.8 trillion industry. That's massive. And if you assume that 40% of it, if you take the conservative approach from the Indian defense budget, that 40% is at least being a capital procurement side, then you're looking at a $800 billion opportunity. While yes, there are challenges to it, but the opportunity exists. And I believe a businessman or an industrialist only looks at the opportunity. Solutions we figure out later. When we spoke to each one of the stakeholders, we found that one person said, I'm only looking for more views from the higher above. When we spoke to a middle value chain person, he said, I'm looking for inputs from sometime from below and some from above. And the above one was waiting for all the inputs from below. Point in context, if we talk to an OEM, they say that I'm really looking for these best suppliers in these 2-3 industries. That's all I need. When we talk to an MSME, they say, this is what I can give and offer. Can you just connect me to a particular Indian player or a foreign OEM? But somehow, all of this exists within us. We have seen so many presentations. We understand where we're all coming from. But somehow it is not coming together. And I think someone spoke of that. I think Commodore Shekhar mentioned that in his opening remarks, that this can only happen when we are all together. This cannot happen if we are alone. And I think this is something which is up to the AIDAT team to ensure that there is a way, there is a mechanism where these interactions can happen more and more. Because clearly, on our own, we cannot do this. Most of the times, when we ask them that what's the problem with the defense sector, the first response, or rather, I don't think we even asked the question, the response came on its own, that I think the policy has to change. Everyone has been talking about that the policy has to change. But I think the policy makers have a certain reason behind why they've put those policies. And clearly, we can advocate that, but we cannot make them change immediately. It will happen with time. Therefore, at some level, we will have to accept this fact that is policy change the only answer we're looking at? So what we have, let us make the best out of it. Because otherwise, we'll be just stuck with the first stance. We'll be stuck without taking the first step. And we have tried to convey this message across that things will change over a period of time. To make things change, we'll have to find trailblazers, someone who could push through the system, someone who could find a new mechanism, a new way, which would lead others to follow, and in time, the policy would change. So I would strongly recommend all of us to break free from the mindset that if only the policy will change, I probably would, then pitch in and start. So this aspect is of the vertical integration. I think there are, if you break down the entire defense industry, you can figure out, say, 20 to 30 platform or systems which are standalone. Can we, on our own, create a proper industry, a chain, that these are the 5 guys who are at the OEM or the tier 1 level, these are the next tier 2 guys, these are the next tier 3, and then the component manufacturers? Can we, within the state, identify such systems and platforms and build this supply chain within us? Because then it becomes so much easier to work on our own selves as to where we are in terms of any gaps with skill sets, and also how can we work with either a foreign OEM or with our DPSUs. It is only because we don't have this clarity of a vertical integration, we fall apart. We feel that I could have done X thing, but the YZ is nowhere to be found. So again, something for the AIDAT to ensure, and of course all of us here, to figure out this vertical industry map. At the same time, we cannot leave out the horizontal industry. I think Tamil Nadu is very strong when it comes to metals. It is strong when it comes to electronics, mechanical systems. We can look at other materials, composites also. And let us then target everything that is there in that. Again, let us form groups, form clusters, that this is my strength, this is your strength. These are the kind of equipments that are to come over the next 10, 15 years. A tweak here, a tweak there, and we can do this. But we never go into those conversations. We always stop at the level that this is a system, this is a seeker that we have to buy, etc., etc. But it just does not go beyond that. I think we have to enter the next detail line. Another very, very important opportunity that we have, which is still not tapped, is the import substitution. And when I say import substitution, it is more on the spare parts. There is a mighty amount of equipment that we have, which is from the past origins, whose supply chain in the respective countries don't exist anymore. And the idea of the Directorate of Indigenization for all the three services that was brought up, what we found was when we spoke to the MSMEs, they said that the cost of development is very high. And the minimum order quantity or even the entire ship sets that I have to give out in the year or the 5 years is just too less for me to put my money into the cost of development. And therein, I think after a lot of brainstorming, the suggestion that we have put in the reports also is, which actually also was a point above, that we haven't really tapped the academia that we have in our country. I think as a nation, we don't really work so much with our colleges and universities. And I'm glad that IIT and Hindustan University are present here. And I would again recommend, urge, suggest to Tamil Nadu to make sure that they are the first state in the country to actually work along with the academia and our institutes, because all this development cost can happen at a very cheap rate in these colleges and universities. You have brilliant students sitting there who are ready to do project work, their master's degrees, all of that can happen at a very, very little amount of money and can be pushed out then into the market, industrialization. So this opportunity must be accessed. It is very easy to access because what we are looking at is simple mechanical parts, simple metal parts, simple electronic parts. This is no rocket science. There is no R&D as such. The only thing is reverse engineering, where you have 6 engineers, 6 professors from different disciplines coming together and figuring out. So I think this is like a low-hanging fruit. The same thing goes, I've been hearing a lot that all our IITs or key institutes, there are foreign OEMs coming in, there are foreign companies who understand the worth of the projects that are happening, but no Indian company is to be found in and around those campuses ever. And I think we need to maybe sort of rethink that model also, that why do we shy away from working with our own institutes when the entire globe understands their relevance. And we talk about that the R&D costs us so much and we cannot do. I mean, there are fabulous labs there. I spoke to one professor who said that he currently is in touch with 3 different certain countries' OEMs, and they're just ready to take him out completely, lock, stock, barrel. So these are things that, again, we can work on as a state. I think the whole idea of setting up this annual conference and next and next and next is ultimately, we are all guys who are running our businesses. It must end in some revenues. And that will not happen unless we have targets in our heads. So it's so important that all of us as an association, individually, we must set a target that for the next 6 years, this is the amount that is going to get sourced out of the state. I think if we do not have that target, then we will just be running around or doing things at a certain pace. The defense production policy talks about 35,000 crores of exports, talks about 1,75,000 crores of indigenous production for the country. Can Tamil Nadu do 30%, 20%, 40%? There has to be a number. We have to pick a number and we have to deliver on that. That would be the only thing that would drive our businesses from here on. So that's sort of the closing slide for Tamil Nadu. Let us have a target so that when we meet next time, we know where we are progressing towards. Finally, as E&Y Global Consulting Firm, we do a lot of things. We provide policy, we provide procedural consulting, we provide entry strategy and growth strategy. And I'm happy to have any conversations or any inputs from the knowledge paper post this session and during the break sessions. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Ankit, for your insights. This will definitely go a long way in helping industries in Tamil Nadu. I request Mr. Franklin, Secretary AIDAT, to please hand over the memento to Mr. Ankit.